Wow.
There you
There.
go.
And now I will share the screen and I will put this on. There we go.
Lovely.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning's Regulations Subcommittee. Sue, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. I just had it in front of me here. Let's see. Oh, it's not on what I'm looking at. I beg your pardon. It's not on this. I had it in front of me, but I'm trying to get it to come back up on my screen.
How about, I can call the roll for you.
Here we go. I have it. Mr. Collegian,
Present.
Mr. Sadie,
Present.
Mr. Quish,
Present.
and I know David Sulkis is here. Stephen Harris is here or was here. Stephen, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And Mr. Griffin? No, Joe?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Okay, very good.
We are all official. So I want to thank Mr. Sadie for putting together some thoughts on paper, and also to Mr. Griffith. I did anticipate that we would have some, I don't know if they're best practice, but to take a look at how other cities have taken the intent of the regulation change and made it their own. I mean, right? So there's one of our options is to accept what the state has done, right? And then they did that for a reason, and it passed both houses, right? So there's some collective intent and some supposedly collective good that was they were striving for. And so we can either accept that or opt out of it with 2/3 of both P and Z and the alders if we want to opt out. Another option is for us to kind of opt out with, okay, here's what you guys were trying to get done. We've decided to customize it for our own town. And so we opt out, but it's sort of in the same brushstroke, make adjustments to our present regs so that we, in my mind, would be trying to achieve some of the goals that they were trying to achieve that we feel are important to Milford. And so it's not just like turning our back on the state and saying, forget it, we don't care what you think. It's kind of like, yeah, well, there was a reason to do it. We agree with all or some of the reasons, and here's what we're proposing. I would have liked to have seen what other towns have done. I would like to have seen a copy of the new regs up so that we could compare that to what we have. But what we have is what we have for tonight. So if you want to put up on the share the screen, is it smart between Robert and Joseph, if you think we look at the one that you both edited, and then
It's
Mr.
up to
Sadie
Bob.
can go first, because everything that Mr. Sadie edited is on the one that you also edited. Is that correct?
Correct. I didn't touch any of his red.
Okay.
It's in different colors. So yeah, you'll be
Yeah,
able to
so
see,
if you
but
wanna
I'd
just
leave it
give-
to Bob to take us through his edits.
Yeah, so, but if we put up both at first, then we can see, and then Mr. Sadie explained to us his thinking behind what he had done.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Quish. And just I'll make a brief statement before we get into this, that we were tasked by the overall members of the board to look at this regulation. It does not mean that whatever we propose to the board that we're going to be taking a position on opting out or not opting out. I'll make that very clear. Our task is simple enough, although it's very tedious work to do, no question about it. But our job is to see, is there some way we can change the regulations, send something up to the board, and then they can take a vote on it. They asked us, I think, within 30 days to do so. So that being said, I looked at, and we have a one-page document that's in front of me, but I have it also up on a different computer. The items, if you want to, I'll go through what I suggested and had thoughts concerning. One is we get down to 3.1.1.7, what was designated as subparagraph 2. And I just suggested striking out the second sentence, which is non-conforming lots with more than one single-family dwelling are prohibited from having an accessory apartment in a structure. I just suggested that because I think that there are questions that we would have that we brought up at the other meeting. How many lots do we have? I think we need a little bit more information. We also need to know what other cities are doing, but that's something that struck me as something that we might want to take out. Number 4, I suggested to take it out because it requires that a person related by blood, marriage or legal adoption, which are terms that are used but are anachronistic. They're anachronistic because we have so many other ways of having families defined. So there was 2 reasons to say that should be either taken out completely or tweaked because we heard people speak on this at the public hearing, and they were concerned that related by blood should not be one of the reasons, but we should probably consider other definitions that were not considered at the time this regulation was proposed. That's number 4. I then went down to number 7. And this is a question to Joe. Why strike only a portion of this provision? My thinking on that is that because of the way that we are changing how utilities are provided to homes. So let's say that a home puts up solar panels. Could there be a separate utility? And could that be a separate bill or item for that particular accessory unit? That's why I put it there. It's just, again, things that I was looking at. I'm not wed to any of these. I just was offering this as suggestions to the committee. Number 9, my general view on that is I don't think we should limit and we get involved in if somebody's paying rent, whether they're family members or not. And that's something that we should not have in there. And that's why I should ask that be stricken. 12. The one concern I have about that, it talks about the permit only goes for 36 months. Suppose they're going to reapply and they get the application within 36 months. The owner has to remove all the items that may well be for a subsequent petition and application that's appropriate. So the word shall at their own expense remove, I think that's something that's burdensome to the owner of the property. And then number 11, I said that if there is the planning and zoning office, the applicant shall allow the dwelling to be inspected for compliance with regulations. I think that should be mandatory. I think that's a brief summary of what I did. The remaining items, 14, 15 through 18 were items that Joe Griffith had suggested through his office and the planning and zoning office, I imagine with other members. So that's my comments, unless if there's any questions, we can listen to Joe's comments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to inquire anything with Mr. Sadie's intentions or?
I thought he did a good job.
Great. Yeah, we appreciate it. Joe, if you want to sort of do the same sort of
Sure.
analysis of what your thoughts were.
Okay, let me just, as Dave scrolls up to the top here, let me just start with kind of some core concepts, the way we have been dealing with our accessory apartments. And Stephen, jump in if I'm misspeaking or oversimplifying, but we're what's triggering an accessory apartment as opposed to a game room or a kitchenette or a bachelor pad or any of these other things that might have refrigerators and bar sinks and whatever else. What we're looking at is the residential cooking appliance, the range, right? And then specifically, as opposed to that appliance getting moved in or out, or that appliance getting moved out to the basement and then moved back in again, we're looking to see that the service for that range not exist. So very literally, we're looking at that 240 volt plug or that gas service to that kitchenette or whatever else, that's taking it from being, a permissible use, a rumpus room, a game room, a kitchenette, a whatever, bachelor pad, man cave. And then once you put in that domestic appliance with the service to it, all right, that's where you cross the line. Now it's an accessory apartment, and we're saying, hey, you got to comply with all these things. I guess the other thing that was core to this discussion, I think it's validating what Bob was saying, is that our regulations currently say it's a family member, right? And so again, we're kind of put in this position of, well, we're taking in certifications from the property owner that they're compliant with these items 1 through 16, whatever they are. But then presumably, by virtue of our being able to go in there and inspect or whatever else, Stephen's going to bring his blood sampling kit, and he's going to do the testing to make sure that they are in fact blood relatives or what have you, or see their marriage licenses or whatever else is going to happen. So it kind of puts us in a difficult spot there, other than just, as I said, relying on the certification of the permit applicant. But as I see it, though, in addition to saying you're allowed to generate some income off of this, we are not going to limit it to just blood relatives, which is, I guess, fine. The remaining limits to these apartments that I think we're talking about here, and again, please jump in if I'm oversimplifying it, is that number one, the owner of and I'm using the term principal dwelling, but the main house is going to live in that main house. And then the accessory dwelling unit, the accessory apartment, is going to be connected. So it can't be out in the garden shed, it can't be out in the pool house, whatever else. It's got to be part of the primary structure. And I think those are the two component pieces that remain, which I think, the board was talking about a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's consistent with what Bob has proposed in the red lines here. So a lot of the purple writing here is that what I think is consistent with what Bob was proposing. So in the first paragraph, we're talking about deleting the provisions about at the same time recognize that certain family members related blood marriage, whatever, want to live in the same house. We're saying you don't need to comply with that anymore. In the second paragraph, I'm trying to just kind of clearly define that we're dealing with both the principal dwelling and the accessory dwelling, and make sure that we're distinguishing between the two, and then making sure that that relationship to the two is, as opposed to trying to say, well, you can't connect it with a breezeway or a porch or a deck. We didn't mention attics. We didn't mention basement spaces, whatever else. I'm just saying, hey, look, let's just take the interior spaces and make sure they abut each other. And that's what I'm trying to do by clarifying that language. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's fine. I mean, that's good. I will tell you the reason why we actually have that language in there.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding breezeway, porch, deck, or garage, because we went to court. We've had cases where they said, oh, it is part of the main structure. It's connected to the house. It's the main structure. And the court ruled against us and said that the breezeway connected it to the separate building, and that was the main structure.
And then I understand, that's why I said the principal building, accessory dwelling, the main house are essentially connected by interior habitable spaces.
Which is good, which is good, as long as we don't end up back in court with someone trying to get one by us.
The other provision, this sentence, which actually cropped up in a couple of applications that we've just had, where we said, and I'm proposing to strike this out because I think it's consistent with what was it, item number, hang on just a second, please. Item number 2. Item number 2 is talking about non-conforming lots with more than one are prohibited. That's saying it kind of one way. This strikeout in the second paragraph, where we're talking about no accessory apartment application shall be accepted unless the property, the lot, is in compliance with the current lot regulations. And what we discussed here, and that's why I said please discuss, is this is considerably affecting the density of neighborhoods, right? You've got down in an R5 district, all these homes along the beaches here. In an R5 district, you got any number of lots that are 3,000 square feet. And what this is saying specifically is regardless of lot coverage and building area, if your lot doesn't conform to being a 5,000 square foot minimum, you can't do an accessory apartment on your lot. And so again, you might think that's a plus or a minus, but as that's what I said, just please discuss that, because I think that strikeout in conjunction with number 2 and the revisions there have a big impact.
Well, I think building area and lot coverage requirements act to constrain the size of the building. So personally, I don't see why a lot has to conform to zoning.
As I said, it's proposed to be struck out, but
Yeah.
just appreciate that does have a big impact on the density. So a 3,000 square foot lot, presumably, because we don't make any additional provisions, right, for parking spaces, right, Dave?
Correct.
So again, you would presumably have 2 parking spaces for the single family dwelling without affecting the parking requirements. You're now conceivably going to have 3 or 4.
I mean, in a new regulation, you could say that you have to have 4, whatever number you want to have.
Well,
on the
yeah,
lot.
I think there's certain restrictions on how you can adjust. I don't know. I'd have to see them side by side. And to be honest with you, I did not reread it again today. The new language.
Well, when you say
By that, you mean the statute, Jim?
Yeah,
yeah, the
the
statute.
language we would live with if we chose not to opt out.
Yeah, I guess this is all the red lining and all the purple lining here is all predicated on the assumption that step 1, the board, the subcommittee, and then the board opts out.
Yes, and I think that is maybe not fully the best way to go. I think I think that obviously that anything we do in the subcommittee that alters that presupposes that we will opt out and the alders will opt out as well. But I think that one thing that's important to me personally is to dive a little bit deeper into the intent, and through that, just by a deeper dive into the language, kind of sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, seeing what they're trying to do. Some of this stuff is definitely inconsistent with what they were trying to do, right? That they were trying to allow accessory structures that were not connected. Like if you have a garage, for example, and you can put an apartment on top of your garage, but the garage is not part of or connected to the building, to the house, a detached garage. You could not convert that detached garage or a portion of it. So I think we're missing something that the state reg tried to accommodate and accomplish. So there's a few things about both the red lines and the purple lines that are, I mean, they're just different. I mean, whatever it is, there's a bunch of ways to look at it, and there's a bunch of issues that are specific to an entire concept of, let's try to make it our existing, if we opt out, let's make what we do have better. And hopefully we'll get some guidance by doing a deeper dive on what they thought was going to make things better.
So can I say something?
Go ahead.
So we're way ahead of the curve because we have regulations in Milford for accessory apartments. We're staring at them. A lot of the state doesn't have them, which is why they created that legislation. The towns along the shoreline who have regulations, everyone is already opted out. There's no deep dive because they already have their regulations and they want to keep their regulations. So what we have to think about is, do we want to keep our regulations and make them more available? Because I think a lot of the discussion that night at the meeting was they were perhaps too restrictive, which would, if we make the changes that are at least proposed here tonight, right on, I mean, that would make them so much more available to people. And I think we'd be in really good shape. Again, the intent of the statute was to get towns who have no accessory apartment regulations whatsoever to do something.
I'm not sure I actually agree with that, David. I think the intent of the legislation is to be found in the language. And the language nowhere says anything about, well, if you already have regulations, fine. You've already decided to do something with accessory structures. So that's fine, you keep those. What they said is collectively, we have a housing shortage.
Right.
And this is what our solution is.
Yes.
So I think it's
Right.
very different than what you said.
No, it's not, because
Well, I disagree. That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
I disagree with you.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, obviously.
So, Mr. Question, and I'm not disagreeing with anybody. Can I ask you a question for Mr. Griffith, though?
You can please do anything you'd like.
Thank you, because brilliant minds think alike. So one of the questions I had before Mr. Quish mentioned, Joe, under our existing regulation, there is a large lot and there's a large garage which has a living space above it, which we call the dwelling unit, has kitchen, bath, and the like. Is that allowed under this regulation as it exists, if somebody wanted to do that?
No,
I think we have provisions that say that actually it would be cited as a violation, and they would then be required to take it out under both the current regulations and the proposed regulations.
Would that be
Like
kind of
that.
like where number 2, that we have the quote non-conforming lot? So if the garage had the apartment over, it'd be a non-conforming lot?
I think more if Davis scroll down to, what is it, item 13 or something? Let me just item 14. Any previously approved but non-conforming accessory apartment shall be removed upon the sale or transfer of property ownership unless the dwelling and apartment are brought into compliance with these regulations.
So that's,
Yeah.
I think Mr. Sadie's question is, what if it was never approved? And
Yeah.
why would we even have that if it was previously approved? What difference
Well,
does it
and-
make?
Well, believe it or not, there are probably tons, without getting into a number, but yes, there are tons of illegal, non-complying apartments. And frankly, when we find out about them, we cite them, and and then it's up to the city attorney to prosecute them.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think,
Joe, I really
that's
appreciate.
I think that's a bad space to be in personally.
Yeah, but I'm just, Mr. Quish, I might just finish up.
Go ahead.
I don't think we're going to get this done tonight, but maybe if we can get some numbers, as best you can. Joe, you said there's a lot. If we know if it's 25 or 2,000, that'd be helpful. And also, there was a provision
When
that-
you say no, I just want to make clear. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Number of lots that we suspect have illegal apartments?
I guess, well, you said there's been reports and you had to go and tell them. So that number, you should have a direct number count, I expect.
Well,
Yeah,
I
if there's
I can give you the number that we have cited and
Yeah.
prosecuted.
You and Steve, yeah, that'd be great. Because that's the thing. And then and going back to my number 2, that's where I'm not wed to the non-conforming lot being taken out, but I just was trying to understand how that could come about. And maybe if you can give us, not tonight necessarily, an explanation of there's 25 non-conforming lots, whether you suspect them or not. But again, I think this is a work in progress. We're starting on this. We're doing a great job, but I think they're all tied in there. And I think my 2 and your paragraph that said that discussed were very similar. Thank you.
Yes.
One thing I thought I understood from your question at the meeting, Mr. Sadie, as well as tonight, is how many lots in Milford would be affected by this, right? So if we have a non-conforming 2,000 or 3,000 square foot lot in an R5 with a house that covers 75% of the lot, they're not going to be able to put and I think we have to separate our thinking from either attached or part of the original structure or attached if it's an addition, to what is the potential for what the state legislation wanted to enable, which is a separate building, right? So if we could look at, and it not obviously precise numbers, but an order of magnitude, right? If there's a 5,000 square foot lot or an R5 with a 3,000 square foot building on a 2,500 square foot lot, that's precluded. They're not going to be able to build a separate accessory structure. So if we could just get a global sense of, yeah, there's 4,000 lots, north of the post road, you'll have, 1,000, 1,500 that they could put an accessory structure as a separate building. And then if we, just sort of give us some statistics of how the various choices that we have in front of us, what that impact would be and where, right? So if it is the case that we have, 1,000 lots, that there's just no way anyone could ever build another building on it because of the size constraints, then that would at least inform us onto the order of magnitude if we chose to accept that one piece of the proposed or the new legislation that wants to allow that, right? If it'll affect X percentage of our lots, X percentage of our different neighborhoods. That and how much of Milford would be affected by just accepting it and not opting out.
Jim, let me answer for Dave and Stephen. I mean, I'll start out by saying yes, we'll give it a shot. We will try our hardest, but I'll say to collect those kind of to collect the data to get those kind of numbers generated would involve cooperation with the assessor's office and and our IT department at a level that
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not
we haven't seen before. So
Yeah,
I mean, we'll give it a shot.
I'm really not looking for precision. I'm not looking. I'm talking about maybe a plus or minus 10% kind of thing. If you got the map out and you blew it up by our zones and you just counted, something. I mean, I really am not trying to burden you with a huge thing.
If I could,
Just sort of
just
in a general sense.
If I could jump in, if it's just raw numbers you want, how many non-conforming R5 lots do we have, and so forth through all the different zones, John Hangen can simply query the assessor's table and tell you we have 5,000 R5 lots, and we know what the lot sizes are because they're in the database, and 3,500 of them are non-conforming, and like that with every zone, so we can get a decent snapshot of how many non-conforming lots we have.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't think it would. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think we should just be as informed, as we can be. And I think before we go back to the board, we should have, if they have a bunch of questions individually that, they might have questions that we haven't thought of and maybe won't think of. But if we collectively have a lot of the answers, then it would be, you did your job kind of thing,
I don't want to get distracted on this, Jim, but I just want to throw this out. We have this other variable in the mix, which has to do with our lot certifications and our non-conforming lots, which is just in terms of the number of lots that that we're looking at right now. It's an unknown, only because the number of lots that we currently have could increase by, I don't know what the number is, 10%, 20%, 30% in the coming year, based on what the board does with our 6.4.2, 6.4.1 regulations. But
what's 6.4.1?
This is the lot mergers and essentially the ability to take a lot from pre-1929 and
right,
and going back to that tax map. I mean, Stephen, you've got 30 applications?
Yeah, 25, 30, yeah.
And of those 25, 30, those could wind up being 75 lots.
Yeah, some of them have multiple lots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I mean,
Wrapped up in one address.
all right. So
I
anyway, I
definitely
don't want to get into that topic, but I think it's just something to be aware of.
Did we vote for the moratorium? I'm spacing out here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have a little bit of COVID fog, sorry. Okay. So I think that, next time, I think if we can get both the language from the new Connecticut statute, we can look at and sort of review the intent. I'll spend some time on that personally. And if we could look at that, I would also like to invite both James Maroney and Frank Smith to our next subcommittee meeting. I know James voted for the legislation. I know Frank voted against it, and they might be able to inform us a little bit on what they understood the intentions to be and what swayed them on their decision. I mean, they were somewhat part and parcel of what the state did, so that might inform us a little. And if any cities or towns have acted on it, it might inform us a little bit as well. But I'm happy if we push this off and have a meeting whenever the committee members are willing to spend their time. I'll do it next week or in 2 weeks, however. I mean, you probably need a little bit of time to put together some rudimentary metrics on what this would affect.
Mr. Quish, I'm actually looking at the statute that was provided in our board materials July 5th. And, you know, it sets forth what the statute, but I don't know if it has all provisions in the statute. I think that your suggestion about listening to a proponent of the legislation and somebody that voted in opposition to it is entirely correct.
If it helps you, I'm displaying the statute now.
Prefer.
Yeah, I mean, unless we want to spend the time and
Yeah.
read it section by section together, I don't know that I have that bandwidth to
No,
just
but
read it.
my preference, however, is if we're going to be doing the subcommittee meetings, we do them on a Wednesday night, especially if we're doing Zoom.
Okay,
Okay,
That's how we used to do them. It used to be a Wednesday night. Tuesday night was for our meetings. That's just me.
Mr. Collegian, is that?
Yeah, I have some questions though, if I
Oh,
can.
please go ahead.
My first question is, before the state came along and enacted this legislation, were we having a problem with our regulations?
not that we were aware of.
Let me jump it. Yes. I mean, we had the enforcement problems, like I said. It's the
Okay,
ongoing
right.
discussion about blood tests that had to be taken and, you know, the
It was-
recertifications.
Yeah, I mean, that
Right.
wasn't, yeah, I mean, people either did it or didn't do it. I mean, but, I mean, there was no clamoring other than people saying, well,
And when you came across those things, were those more in the nature of what we could call colloquially an in-law apartment, or was it a separate dwelling unit?
they're
These are
all
all separate dwelling units.
within the main
I'm
structure.
sorry. Let's say not connected,
No, we don't
not
have.
connected to the main dwelling.
Not connected.
No, they're all in the main dwelling because we don't allow them outside the main dwelling.
Okay, but there are violations. Are the violations outside of the main dwelling? Or are these violations that we're looking at within the dwelling?
They could be either. We've had people who converted, created one in the main dwelling without going through our
Well, I
basic.
guess not to cut you off, Dave, but my first question was this a problem? And if so, which was more of a problem, the in-law type setup or a separate a building?
Let me jump in. The times that we have gotten into discovering separate dwelling units in separate buildings, like somebody converted their garage into an apartment, we would just enforce it. I mean, so it was just a question of issuing them the notice of violation, and there was very little discussion about, it's a freestanding structure, so no, it's not allowed. Get the range out, get the kitchen facilities out, and it was pretty straightforward. And that's what I said, though. The distinction there is, typically they were doing all the work without a permit, so we were citing them for that. Now they had to do the corrective work, which had to at least include taking out the range, but they still had to bring everything up to code if they did work without a permit. So
I'm thinking it really boils down, for me at least, to just a couple of things. And one would be family, and I appreciate Mr. Sadie's comments that perhaps rather than striking it, we broaden it to include what we might think of a family today. And that might be more liberal than what we thought of originally when this was drawn up. But the three things that stand out is, where is this dwelling unit going to be? Is it going to be detached in somebody's backyard? That's number one. Number two for me would be, how are the tenants, for lack of a better word, how are they going to be related, or are they going to be related? And then the third one, which ties into that, I'm not so excited about either way, is income purposes. Because again, I understand regulation, and that would be impossible. If I want to charge my daughter to stay upstairs, you'll never get through that. So, but those other two things, where is this in relationship to the main dwelling? Is it attached or is it in the backyard? And what's our definition of family? Well, my suggestion is that we just simply opt out of the state and work on what we got. And I don't think what we got is that bad. Thanks.
Well, yeah, if I may weigh in on what, your question of, was it a problem? And so I guess the answer was partial in my mind. Yes, there are people that have apartments that are over a garage that are not permitted. We have people that have created a separate apartment inside their house that is not permitted, and so there are clandestine things, and that was a problem that that staff has brought up. I think there is another problem that is a general statewide and a significant problem here in Milford, is that we have a housing affordability problem, right? So is it a problem for everybody? No, it is not. Is it a problem for some people? Yes, it definitely is. So there are a certain amount of people who are Milfordites, live in Milford, maybe grew up here, maybe just moved here, whatever. They're our neighbors and our fellow Milford citizens that are feeling a strain on the cost of housing. And I think that if we hear from Frank Smith and James Maroney, I would hope that they talk about some of the discussion around that at the state level. And I think that was the impetus, or part of the impetus for this, is to create another tool in the toolbox to help with what I think everyone understands is a housing affordability problem. So this is different than 830G. It's different than voluntary rent reductions for workforce housing or whatever that people can use to get funding for part of their stack in development. But I think it is an issue, and I think there is an existing problem. This could help alleviate it. It's not the whole story or the whole solution, but either not opting out or significantly changing the regulations to help soften that and accommodate a fairly substantial portion of Milfordites would be a good thing, would be my goal. I don't really have all the answers for certain, but I think if we all collectively see that is a problem that we should address, then we should address it. If no one else agrees with you, then we don't address it. But
Mr. Quist, I'm just looking at the statute. And it's interesting because it says if the municipality fails to adopt new regulations or amend any existing regulations to comply with those provisions, they shall be null and void. So
I'm not sure I understood what you just said. Could you explain that?
Okay. The statute says that if the municipality fails to adopt new regulations or amend existing regulations by January 1st to comply with the requirements of the statute, then any non-compliant regulation shall become null and void. So we got to be careful about that. If we don't amend it properly or adopt new regulations.
No. I think you're missing it. If they're saying if we don't officially opt out.
No, I'm not talking about opting out. I'm not talking about opting. I'm talking about adopting new regulations.
No. If we don't act by January 1st, we have opted in. We have not opted out, and therefore any old or new regulations are null and void. If we opt out, we opt out, and then we can change or not change. So that's, anyway.
I suggest we all take a look at subparagraph E. I read it completely differently than you, that we have to take some action. The opting out or opting in doesn't help us yet. We have to follow it.
If we do nothing, we have not opted out, and the state regulation will take effect on that date.
That's correct.
That's all it's saying. But
if we opt out and we don't change the new regulation, then we're back to where we were.
it doesn't matter what we have done. If we don't opt out, then the new regulations are the law.
Thank you.
Anyway, you read it again. If I could be wrong, that's what I think. But I think at any rate, I don't feel we have a recommendation for the full board at this point. So if we would go to either next Wednesday or the following Wednesday for a subcommittee meeting at whichever time, we would please invite James and Frank. And if staff comes up with anybody that they feel could be of substantial benefit that we invite it to listen to, then I would entertain that discussion as well.
Okay, so you want to have the two state reps at the next meeting? Sounds
State
like.
senator and state rep, yep.
Okay.
Do we, I think we have another state rep though in portion of Eastern Milford.
Oh, let's have the one-on-one, so you have the pro and the con.
Okay, that's fine. Without objection, we'll do that and we will adjourn this meeting. Unless
Will we
someone
get
wants-
some dates, council, Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, do we get some dates? Or we're gonna have David poll us tomorrow, because we can kind of plan next 2 weeks.
So we're looking at either Wednesday the 3rd, which is the day after the meeting on the 2nd, or Wednesday the 10th.
So I'm available for either one.
Okay.
Mr.
Brian,
Collegian, do you
Yeah,
have a
I'll let-
preference?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay,
I don't know. I just don't know.
Susan
Okay.
LaFond, what is Wednesday night?
what is
She's not
what?
answering me.
Mr. Sadie's curious why
No,
Wednesday is better for you.
No. Hot yoga.
That's it.
Oh.
Oh.
Hot yoga night.
All right, that works for me.
Well, we can all go to hot yoga and talk about it.
Mr. Quish, Tuesday is softball night, and losing a month's worth of softball for me at my age is difficult.
Okay. I'm okay with any date you guys choose.
So
Well,
we'll let David poll everybody, and we'll get something
Yeah,
hopefully by Thursday.
Yep. Mr. Collegian will let you know what his schedule would accommodate.
I'll make sure it works.
Hey,
Okay.
Jim, could I jump back on, and I don't want to belabor this, but in inviting our
This looks
state.
fairly, this looks fairly empty, Joe.
Okay, I'll be quick. In inviting state representatives or state senators, is it just whatever, fair to invite everybody, or at least extend an invitation to everyone?
Everyone who?
Every state representative in Milford or our state senator, but
Yeah, I don't,
okay,
whatever.
it just,
Who
okay.
was our other one? Kathy Kennedy?
It's Kathy, and is there another?
Peter
No.
Ferraro.
What's that?
Mr. Ferraro is on the far eastern side, is he not?
I don't really know. That's, I always just thought of it as Frank and James, but
Again, I just wanted to throw that out, but again,
I'm fine with inviting everybody. I don't want to be exclusive. So it might make the meeting a little more laborious, or we could invite the other two at
Well,
another meeting. I don't,
we can invite all four and see who shows.
okay, yeah, I don't want to appear to be exclusive at any juncture.
I'll market it. I'll say the subcommittee wants to put you on the hot seat to explain the accessory apartment state regulation.
Yeah. Hot seat, hot toddy.
Mr. Quish, there actually were two other matters that are noticed as part of our agenda. 'Cause I know you were originally trying to adjourn. but
Yeah,
there's-
now I'm ready to jump ship.
Yeah.
But if you
So
want to put
I
the
have no
agenda up
suggestions
again,
for
I'll
proposed
see it,
amendments,
go
which
through
is
it
the-
as,
You didn't pull it up yet, Dave?
Hold on. Oh, you want me to pull up the agenda? Hold on. Let me, give me 2 seconds here. Share screen. Dee-dee-dee. Can you see it?
okay, item D, member suggestions for proposed amendments. Do we have any?
None by Mr. Sadi tonight. I will have some later on, but not tonight.
may I share my screen?
Would you like me to share? Would you like me to just put it up?
No, I've got the amended one, which I actually cut it way back. So can I share
yeah,
my
it was-
screen? May I share my screen, Mr. Chairman?
Please do.
Dave, you got to allow me to share my
There
screen.
you go. Go right ahead.
There we are. Okay, so you should be looking at this little Word document here. Is everybody seeing that?
No,
No, hold on.
too small.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Is everybody seeing it okay?
I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, I just very briefly, without getting into the details of any of these things, it's just things that have been on our plate for a long time. I asked Dave to kind of go through all the emails, whatever else, and just kind of compile this list. Some of them, fine, we can put them on a back burner for now, and a lot of these things I think are just somewhat clerical that just can be addressed at any point in time. Other ones are sort of have been hitting us regularly as being our little problems that we don't really know how to regulate. So if I could just kind of briefly, constantly we have documents, applications coming in that involve a statement of use, although we've never defined exactly what a statement of use is. So somebody will say, you know, I'm doing an exercise facility or something like that. We want to know hours of operation, the number of patrons, the number of staff, that type of thing. And so what we're, again, without getting into the details, we believe it would be a good idea to spell out in our regulations that when we say we need a statement of use, this is the information that we need, and it's going to be certified by the applicant as being accurate.
Okay, can we do this, Joe? Can we
Yes.
get this list with a narrative underneath each one that gives us some context of what the highest priorities are? And
Yes.
so just so that we can we
Yes.
can then at next meeting, we can put this on the agenda to not necessarily tackle a specific number, but at the next agenda, once we read the narrative, we can pick 3 or 4 and put them on the next meeting so
Sure.
that we have time to, get you guys to do your legwork and for us to do any consideration we have up front. So that would be a good thing to get us back on track. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Quist, the last matter on the agenda was a motion for minutes of September, I think, of 21. Mr. Collegian is probably going to make a motion to approve those, right, Brian?
I certainly am. I move to approve the minutes.
And I will second that.
Without objection, the minutes are approved.
Thank you, Mr. Quist.
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Collegian is going to make that too.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second. And Mr. Sadi, you're being kind of a bully. I would advise you against it.
We need to get Brian's name in the minutes. That's
Yes,
the
I
important
know, but he may challenge you to a tennis match and you're going to want to play pickleball. So I don't know.
Thank you, sir. Do we adjourn?
Thank you, everybody. I
Are you
appreciate
sure,
your.
are you sure you want to adjourn?
I am certain.
Just checking. Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.